and jump scaring you with the intro video that I literally just realised I could trigger like that. Thanks for joining. If this is your first time, I streamceptioned myself. I had the stream open in a unmuted thing. If this is your first time joining, I am checking out 2 games about plants today. I've got the Greenening, which is a bit of a mouthful to say, a game where you play as plants, as far as I can tell. It's a sort of ecosystem-driven game. And then after that, we're going to be checking out Solace of Flowers, which has a similar theme. This is a card game where flowers are used to restore life in a dying world. So both games with a similar theme, probably a different approach. On this stream, at least these Thursday streams, every game I play is an unreleased game that the developer has specifically sent because they want some sort of feedback on it. And we can do that in multiple ways. You know, I can play the game and give my first impressions, which is what I do. People in the chat give their impressions of it based on what they're seeing and hearing. And hopefully sometimes this motivates other people to go and pick up the demos, join the playtest, whatever it is, and help to improve that game if it is something that they like the look of. So we're going to jump straight into the Greenening and see what this is like. These are both demos that are quite far along. You know, they've got Steam pages and everything. These aren't like itch prototypes. I'm going to give each one of them an hour today. We've got 2-hour stream. Give each game an hour. Hi, folks in the chat. Hi, Tim. Hi, SpongeBob. Is that the actual SpongeBob? Can't believe it. I'm just switching my stream chat so I can see Twitch as well. We're usually quite quiet on Twitch, but I don't want someone in there not getting a response if they're chatting. Let's try and run that again. This pink thing looks like if you've seen the movie Annihilation, there's like the shimmer, like this big dome of psychedelic alien resonance that descends on the area. I think it's that, but with a face on it. Okay, I'm going to turn the music up a little bit so you get the lo-fi. We've got very standard lo-fi hip-hop, but it's got some bird noises in the background, which is a nice thought here. Right, so new game, continue settings, quit. Anything I need to know about in settings? Probably not. And we got this guy or gal. I don't know what they're doing, but their eyes follow my cursor, which this is the kind of thing that seems dumb, right? But it does fill me with confidence when I open a game and there's some silly little toy on the front page, like the eyes following the cursor, because it just shows a level of playfulness that the developer has. And that goes a long way in making games, I think. It does look a bit like Peppa Pig. A planet covered in ashes, most likely caused by a great calamity in the past. Let's explore it together. We were able to synthesize some of its main element, called water, into this handy cloud here to help us wash away the ashes. Okay, I've got cloud control. Let's see if there's anything left underneath and gain more knowledge about this world. I'm Sparkle, by the way, a sentient probe for acquiring remote knowledge and learning. I'll be your guide and companion along the mission. Nice to meet you. Now let's get started. Click to initiate the automatic release of water upon the surface. So I can click and hold, and it's just dropping away. Oh, we're washing away this sort of ashy fog of war. Oh no, we ran out of water.
Lucky for us, though, we can always synthesize more, but I don't have the means to do that here on the surface, so let's return tomorrow. In the meantime, let's check if our gathered knowledge can help us increase our water capacity for next time.
Okay. That's interesting. So we got like a soft fail state. It was like you try and do this thing and then it's like you run out of resources. This feels like it's going to be an incremental like Deep Space Cache or something where the game is designed for you to just do a very quick run at something, soft fail when you run out of something, upgrade some stuff, and then go straight back in and do the thing again, which is quite compelling, and it's interesting to see it applied to this sort of theme that isn't about like money or accumulation, you know? Upgraders. Capacity. The cloud can hold more water. Level 0 of 5. Costs 1 brain. Don't mind if I do.
Whoa! What happened here? Everything is covered in ashes again. That's not very nice, or did we just land in a different location? Exact navigation is tricky here due to the dire state of the planet. Either way, let's try to uncover as much as possible. I feel like we might be able to reach a tipping point if we give our best. Better to drop your water on the ashes all around than to waste it on me.
You're no fun. So one thing I'm going to say, in a game like this that is very chilled out and seems to be intended to chill someone out, I don't really like holding the mouse button down for a long period of time to trigger an action. It feels sort of out of line with the emotional goal of the game, because like holding the mouse down for like 20 seconds and doing that, the water doesn't come out very fast. I get a feeling we're going to be able to upgrade that, which is okay. But like holding the mouse down for a long period of time, unless you're doing something that is really directly applying something to the screen, like drawing, can feel a little bit strenuous. So my hand's already worn out, and I'm gonna have to give up. No, I'm not really, but I'm trying to foresee what the problems might be. It's not a problem yet. It could be a problem. We can get bigger water drops, or we can hold more water. I should probably upgrade my capacity, but I want a bigger water drop. Oh no, I need 10 brains for that. Okay. I need 3 brains for that, so we're not ready. So we had one loop where we could immediately afford something, and then we have a loop where we don't quite get enough to afford something. I'm trying to work out if I have... if the amount of brain upgrade power I'm getting is randomized, or if it's based on how much I clear. I'm not sure. But we can afford an upgrade now, so let's do that. Ah, that's great. Okay. Now I see what this is doing. So I don't know if you've played... there's a couple of incremental games that are based on sort of archaeology and digging something up, but it's using similar mechanics to that, because you can see the shape of the thing, and if you uncover it fully with the drops of water, then you get a bonus, right? So it's kind of almost like a kind of battleships type mechanic. Like you're looking far and wide, and then when you see a shadow, you concentrate on it. That's great. That's a nice little set of things to get your teeth into that stop it being too idle. You know, this isn't an idle or incremental. This is a little bit more involved. And that's neat. I've seen this mechanic used before in games where you're sort of like digging up pottery and dinosaur bones and stuff. And having it in a game that is based on washing, I guess, makes sense. But having it in a game that is based on washing and like trying to do the ecological work of improving an environment. It fits, but it's a new use of that mechanic with a new theme, and I like that. I'm just going to play a few runs without upgrading so we can buy a few upgrades in one go. I know it's not efficient, but one thing I would say about music direction in these kind of games is you probably don't want to totally change the music when you go from one screen to the other, because you really want everything in these types of games to be very like seamless and ambient. And you'll notice when we go to the upgrade screen, the track completely changes. And I guess it kind of is an exciting moment to get to upgrade stuff. But if I were making this game, I would want like 2 versions of the same track. And you sort of like fade maybe you fade the more intense version in when you go to the upgrade screen. But like the rhythm and the key of the song doesn't fundamentally change. And if we're going for meditative games of some sort, it's probably better to try and keep the same piece of music going, because otherwise, like when you switch the music, it has the effect of like waking the player up and making them pay attention, which is a good thing to do in an action game. I think when you're trying to create a very meditative flow state, if I'm pressing upgrades every time, we're changing the music every time, and I think you do need a musical change between these scenes, but you maybe want it to be more subtle than like changing the entire piece of music, if that makes sense.
A teddy bear. A relic from days long gone. Super cool. We can learn a lot from this.
I've added it to our collection. Folks, if you're ever making a game with a post-apocalyptic theme, you know the route to immediate pathos is to put a kid's toy in the wreckage of the old world. We know this. This is textbook post-apocalyptic narrative design stuff. It's really satisfying to uncover those sort of bonus objects. Going to upgrade the capacity so each run is longer. Oh, regenerating water. That's good. Starts with some ash fully removed. Right, cool. This whole upgrade tree, it's kind of like everything fundamentally does the same thing, but it does feel like an expressive choice to pick each one. They feel like substantial upgrades rather than just... Even though they are fundamentally all doing the same thing, they don't feel the same. I don't think. And because it's not a game where I'm really like playing some sort of cool fantasy character, I don't really care too much that I'm not getting to like define a build or something like that with my upgrades. Ooh.
Whoa, what just happened? Seems like we managed to revitalize enough of this land to kickstart its own healing process. Incredible. There's many more areas for us to explore. Let's move on. Can't wait to see them all in beautiful green.
Area greened. Nice. Get some more upgrades. What I thought was going to happen was we were going to zoom out to a bigger area with the mascot smaller, and we were going to like see more of the area, and the little green bit that we'd cleared would be like one of the old green bits. So sort of like a Katamari Damacy style playing with scale where you zoom out and out and out, but oh, this is thicker ash now, so we've got like a few layers of it that we have to clear to get to the goodies.
A plant! How wonderful! We could use its excess biomass to start our own cozy little garden.
I don't think... Uh-oh, it's the Amazon man. Be right back. The Amazon man bringeth gifts. Thank you, Jeffrey Bezos. I think it's a doorbell because our new house does not have one. And yeah, our new house does not have a working doorbell, so I had to just order one. And sorry, but Jeffrey Bezos. I was told Jeffrey Bezos has the best doorbells, even though he's evil. But I did go to a local shop first. That's my Amazon rule. It's like I try and get something from a shop in walking distance, and then if they don't have it, or if they have to order it in, and I need it really soon, then I go to Jeffrey Bezos. We've got a garden now. Oh, yo dog, I heard you like incremental games, so I put an incremental game in your incremental game so you can game incrementally while you game incrementally. That's nice. Okay, so we're growing a garden in one place. We're excavating a dead world in another. We're getting upgrades for our fluid production skill tree. It's very funny. We were having a silly discussion about peeing as a game mechanic in the Discord this week. So in the Indie Game Clinic Discord, for where all the sort of patrons of this channel hang out, we have like design prompts where people could just throw, like, you get a silly design prompt for a game idea. And I proposed the idea recently of like games where it's a fantastical setting, but you're doing something really mundane, like plumbing, or, you know, just something really, really mundane and not heroic at all. And then we got into a really weird long conversation about a game about peeing. And like what would it be like if you were playing Dungeons and Dragons? But sorry, I forgot who started this idea. But like, what if you were playing Dungeons and Dragons or something, and everyone had a bladder meter, and like it affected loads of game mechanics in a really overly accentuated way. And now that I'm playing with the capacity of a cloud and the droplet size, I can't help but think of that conversation again. Yeah, writing your name in the snow. That's the theme that we really needed to make that kind of drawing sigils on the screen thing work. So many games have tried the mechanic of like drawing something as a game mechanic. And you have to either like really correct what the player is doing and say, oh, I think you were trying to draw this, or be really strict, and it's really difficult to get right. But I think if it was based on peeing in the snow, yeah, exactly, Tim. That's a great idea. I'm really sorry, Dev, if you're watching this stream back and I've turned your very wholesome ecological game into a discussion about peeing on things and people. I'm really, really sorry, but that's just where my brain is at today. And what's this? Upgrades. Oh, okay. That switches modes between these things. Everything here is very intuitive. Customize. It's time to make some art. There's a face in my garden. There's a face in my garden. I think I just wrote a Mac DeMarco song. There's a face in my garden. There we go. We're going to upgrade the impact to remove thicker ashes. We need that because we're on the level with the ultra ash now. We're going to do... I see, there's something about these kind of games, like cleaning games, incremental clickers. It does a similar thing to me that if you've ever, like, cleaned a really big area of a house or a business, or painted it, right? You get into this meditative state where you're not really thinking about anything, but you're also making these, like, you're overthinking certain things to sort of turn it into a game in your head. Because it's not really a game. But you like you're painting a wall and you'll sort of start to think in terms of like, oh, I'll make a square there and I'll fill it in and then I'll like cut across that in a triangle, and it's like you're really overthinking the thing that you're engaged in, and that turns it into a game. And I find that is the sort of thing that happens when I play these sorts of games. Is like there's not really much there, but it's going on in my head.
Yay, we did it! On to the next one! I detect some potentially useful ancient tech here, plus new life forms. Exciting!
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why that book on flow theory written by Csikszentmihalyi, there's like a critique of it on the Game Studies Study Buddies podcast, which I think I recommended to someone on another video recently, and they were like, I wish I'd never listened to that podcast, it's not about games. Like, game studies is like a humanities approach to thinking about games, and the reason I think that critique of that book is good, because everyone in like game design and game studies always talks about Csikszentmihalyi and flow theory without ever like looking at the problems with that book. And like Tim in the chat just said, yeah, my working class background knows that mental process well, of like zoning out on something by sort of paying it too much attention, if that makes sense. And in Csikszentmihalyi, he sort of inadvertently makes the argument that if you work in a factory or you have some job that you hate that's like really menial labor, it's sort of your problem because you should just be thinking about it differently. And if you engage with it differently, it will stop being menial labor. And there's obviously quite a lot of problems with that argument. And that's the reason why I always tell people, if they're interested in that theory, to go and listen to that specific podcast, because they really dig into the issues with that way of thinking. You know, it's kind of like when you've got a disability like ADHD or something, and your friend is just always just giving you really neurotypical advice. Like, you know, the classic one is, you know, eat the frog, right? Eat the frog is the idea that if you've got to eat a frog and that's your job for the day, then you should eat the frog first, because then you won't spend all day thinking about how you've got to eat a frog, right? Get the thing you don't want to do out of the way first. And I'm always trying to encourage my kids to do this. You know, do the 3 important things and then you can chill out without anyone nagging you about the important things. But people with ADHD, because we suffer from like a bad relationship to dopamine, it's kind of like sometimes you need to do the fun part of the thing first to get yourself moving. It's like having your dessert before your dinner. And that's like an example of a thing where the standard advice just doesn't necessarily work for everyone. And I think in the game dev space on here and on Reddit, we have a lot of these kind of issues as well, because there are those of us who sort of approach this more as sort of a hobby where we'd like to be successful at it if we made anything good, right? And I think when you're that kind of person, you kind of think more about how making games fits into your life, right? And you structure your practice around what works for you. But if you're really dead set on commercializing what you do, then you tend to get into this zone of like, I must do things professionally, I must do what a professional would do. And you end up doing things that don't really work for you. And like, I don't know, example for that for me this week that I found, that I learned about myself, was like, if I have assets in my game that I can draw on a tablet, that's really healthy because it gets me away from the computer. So I now have a set of tasks in my game that I've got to do, and because I've committed to drawing them on the tablet on Procreate rather than in pixel art on a screen, that's now more healthily fitting into my life because it's an exercise I can do while I'm sat in the lounge, like hanging out with my kids or something. So it's like a form of work that just fits into my life better. I don't know, sorry, rambling about stuff unrelated to the game, but that's what games like this are for. I'm not gonna like sit here and like analyze every single like nuance of this game, because as you can see, it's doing its job very, very well. I think the only thing I don't like about the presentation is these little bubble buttons, and I know that sounds petty, but they kind of look a bit like something out of a kid's game, whereas everything else doesn't look. Everything else looks sort of abstract and soft, but I wouldn't necessarily say it looks childish, right? It's kind of abstract and soft in the same way that apps like Duolingo and Headspace are kind of cartoony and soft, but they're clearly aimed at adults. But these little cloud buttons do look a little bit kind of like they've come from a small kids game, whereas everything else in the game, the presentation is fantastic. Right. I'm going to go to the garden and then check out my face. We've got some flowers to add now. So we collect this kind of leaf resource, which is biomass, and then we can spend that on different things. I think does the grass make biomass? No, they both come out of biomass. The grass is generating electricity. I don't understand what that is. It's photosynthesizing in some way. I made a face in my garden. I'm going to upgrade the garden face. Just to be consistent, we're going to turn the eyebrows into grass now as well, because I can't afford any more just yet. I think this is the most important part of the game, really. I love it when a game has a little garden mini game. Plants vs Zombies have one. It's great. It refreshes you on the main game. And because this is open-ended rather than goal-oriented, you can just sort of chill out in it before you go back to the main game. I have a really weird well, it's probably not that weird, but like my relationship with mini games in games is always like, is this thing stopping me doing an enjoyable thing to do a less enjoyable thing? And this is sort of enjoyable in a different way, and it's also not like there's no fail state to it. Whereas like fishing mini games, in games where like nearly every game that has a fishing mini game is a game where you're walking around controlling a character, and you're doing that like 90% of the time. So when the game is suddenly like sit on one spot and time a button press, it feels so out of whack with what the rest of the game is, and I just find them quite stressful, fishing mini games. I don't think fishing mini games should be stressful, and they nearly always are in terms of how they're implemented and how they fit into the flow of the game. Whereas I think having a side game that is more to do with like just chilling out and doing a self-directed thing, that's great, because that then refreshes your attention on the main game. You come back to the main game and you're kind of feeling a bit better. But so we've got an upgrade here that makes every fourth drop bigger. That's just the size chart. I really do wish we were playing a little bit more with scale here, though. You know, like maybe if you cleared enough of it and you still had water left, it would zoom out and you'd get more to clear in that run. It just feels like a little bit of a missed opportunity that we're never playing with the visual scale of things like that. Ketor in the chat said the art assets have like edutainment game vibes. I do sort of agree, but I do think these kind of cut out clouds push it further in that direction. It's kind of, it could go either way, really. I mean, there's always going to be people who see this sort of any kind of cartoonish game as childish, but they're not the audience for it, right? You know, people that want everything to be hyper realistic or grimdark are usually, first off, they're often not the audience for indie games in the first place. Like, people that want everything to look like it's for grown-ups are often not the, because most indie games are fundamentally like an interactive cartoon rather than something really realistic. So I think most indie game players are used to playing something that looks like it might be for a child, you know. So you get the adultness from somewhere else, you know. Cult of the Lamb looks like it's for children, for example. Lots of indie games look like they're for children. But yeah, there are sort of subtle differences in like the art direction or like certain asset choices that can make something look more or less childish. I'm just imagining if you're playing this and someone walks in on you, how close to it being the Tim Robinson egg game sketch would it feel? I like the fact we get a tiny bit of Twitch stuff here with aiming at these moving targets. But it's still not enough for it to be, like, genuinely stressful. And my earlier comment about having to hold the mouse button down is gone now because it's become an auto-fire thing. And that is just an example of, like, sometimes you need to have deliberate friction early on because the whole point of upgrades is to, like, gradually remove that feeling of friction. The trick with these games and getting them right is just like how much does it unfold, you know? When I upgrade some more stuff, is it going to feel different? Drops remove thicker ashes. Size drops bigger. Gain more knowledge. I'm going to gain so much knowledge. No, restart area is just doing another run. So yeah, I think Pepperized in the chat just raised a good issue. This was one that I had with Deep Space Cache as well. When I first couple of times I played it, I wasn't sure whether I was supposed to be, you know, continuing that way. I would reword it as something like go again, or not try again, because try again implies you failed. And actually you've completed something and it's just saying, would you like to go again and skip the upgrades? So I would say go again, or next area, You know, something like that. It's difficult. It's because it isn't really a fail state. It's just you've run out of the resource that you were going to run out of. It's like having a time limit in a game in which to complete whatever, and you always have the same amount of time, right? You haven't failed when the time runs out. It's just that the time's run out. So, yeah, small wording thing. The egg game is important. Everyone should know about the egg game. Thank you for playing the demo all the way through. That's truly awesome. The full version of the game will include many more areas, upgrades, and things to discover. So I can't do any more cleaning. They've truncated the demo. I just really wanted to say truncated. But we can go to the garden. A grew face in my garden. I'm quite disappointed by how little I've managed to build in my garden in this run. It would be nice to be able to rotate these with the mouse wheel as well. I'm just telling you now because that's going to be one of the most common feature requests is like I click this. Ah, there it is. It's there. You have the function to rotate it. But yeah, the most intuitive thing for me would have been as I'm clicking and dragging it around using the mouse wheel to rotate. But we can do it anyway. I found a face in the garden. It's going to have horns. It's Pan. Who else up crafting their vision of Pan? It's really hard to make a nose that looks like a nose and not like something else. But you know what they say. When someone is drawing a picture and you see genitals of some description, it's in the eye of the beholder. There we go. Beautiful. It does look like a rocket. Yeah, exactly. So, for me, I quite like what's going on here. There are a few small creative changes I would make. I would make sure that the music doesn't change completely when you go from one area of the game to the other. And, you know, if you're... And maybe there's like a playlist of tracks that switch. You don't want the same track running for hours and hours while people play the same game. It's generally not good. But also, these clouds to me are the most sort of babyish looking thing, for want of a better word. And I feel slightly disappointed that we didn't get any playing with scale. I really felt like we were gonna, you know, once you got to a point where you had enough water and you were clearing the area quick enough, you would clear that circular area with half of your water left, and then the camera would zoom out and it would go, oh, now clear some of this as well, right? So as you upgrade all of your capacity to do things, within a single level, the sort of scope of what you can do as a player grows. Whereas what was happening was the game, you're leveling up, and then the game is sort of rising to meet you by making the ash thicker and stuff like that, which doesn't. It feels like for every upgrade you get, the game is pushing against you in an equal way, and you don't get any sort of moments of like, oh wow, look at. There's no changes in scale that are like really kind of big wow moments. And I think zooming the camera out would have been one of those. It would, it's kind of, again, that Katamari Damacy feel. In Katamari games, you'll start off rolling your ball around a little room, collecting pins and stuff. The ball gets bigger, and then you can go, the scale of the game changes. You can go around the rest of the house, and you can pick up like cats and cushions and stuff. And then the scale will change again, and you'll go around the town and pick up bicycles. It felt like it needed something like that, like a stepped scaling out, because the game is scaling up its difficulty by adding thicker ash and stuff, and it just feels like every time you get an upgrade, the game is like directly countering it, and that makes it feel a little bit less satisfying to progress. So there's lots of stuff I like here. There's also a few things that I think zooming out after you've cleared most of the area, because basically what happens there is if you upgrade your stuff and you're kind of ahead of the curve and you manage to clear the area, you can still have water left, and the game will be like, we've cleared this area, and it all goes green, and then you quit out, and it's like, well, I've still got some resources left. Let me do something with those excess resources that makes me feel good as a player. And I do think pulling the camera out and letting them clean a bigger area would be a good idea there. I don't know what that is there, that number. Oh, I can go back into the main game. But yeah, when you finish the area, it I don't think it lets you use up the rest of your water. I'm not sure. I don't feel like I have a very good understanding of when it decides you're finished, Maybe it's just when if you find all the objects in one go. Okay, so it waits until you run out of water, and then if enough of the area is clear, it carries on going. It's okay, but it's no egg game. Just give me a second. So I was going to give each game an hour, but that demo didn't give us an hour, which... So we'll just take a quick break in the middle before we check out the Solace of Flowers, and we'll feed some eggs. There we go. Truly the king of incremental games. Right, let's check out the second game about flowers and ecology. Sometimes I group games together by genre, sometimes I group them by theme. These are both games with a similar theme. I think that might mean... Oh, I thought I'd already installed it. Better not be a big demo, but we can check out the videos and stuff in the meantime. An hour of eggs, yeah. Okay, that's working. Ceiling games. Thank you for sending this in. This is what it looks like. An eco-dystopian deck builder. I love what I'm seeing here. The art style kind of reminds me of Heaven's Vault, strangely enough. We've got like these a wrecked civilization. It's got kind of strange landmarks, like these hands coming out of the ground. And then you've got this very sort of hand-drawn, painterly looking cards that look like the board game Wingspan, the one about birds. Restore life in a dead world. Put some trees on a thing. It looks like someone went, I'm going to make what is essentially a board game and then try and give it the art and sort of interactive vibes of a Tiny Glade. Because you've got these things like Tiny Glade that are like toys, really, that it's not like there's not a game to it, it's a toy. And I'm not saying that to be disparaging of Tiny Glade, it's just that's kind of what it is. Whereas this is like, let's take all of the stuff that people like about that in terms of the art and the thing as an object and try and make a actual kind of thinky game out of it. So let's see. Oh. I'm going to have to reopen that because it's aligned strangely on the screen. Yeah, I haven't played this one before, no. Ceiling. Almost nothing remains of what the world once was. Did I skip that? Was that the only bit? I don't know. I pressed some macros to... I'm just going to check we haven't missed a whole intro there. I was pressing some macros to change the screen, and it looked like it skipped some things. I was ready to do my gravitas voice. Let's try again. Almost nothing remains of what the world once was. Just a wasteland, overrun by anomalies that twist and break all the laws of nature. It is probably too late for us, too late to do what we failed to do in the past. As we have left, all we have left is the memory of that past, the stories, the songs, the games. As long as I do not forget them, perhaps there is still hope. The Solace of Flowers. New game. Sorry, I went from Patrick Stewart to Mr. Tumple there. Chapter 1, Diminishing Shores. It all began with the rise of the waters. So we got... Oh, okay. It looks like this is going to be like a roguelike map. And we start here and then we can go in either direction. And we've got to maybe do all of it, but we pick what order we do it in. That's interesting. The incinerator. A sudden heat wave. By the time you smell the distant scent of burning wood, it will be too late. Remove the anomaly by covering its corrupted region with vegetation. Getting a little bit of lag on some of these things. Right. That's the anomaly. Oh, look, it's got some real wiggles going on in the art here. Right, so I can rotate the camera. I can drag around. The mouse controls for manipulating the camera all feel very intuitive and what you would expect them to be. It's like, you know, right click and you can spin it, left click and you can drag it. Mouse wheel zooms you in. Fine. This is the corrupted region, I guess. So, we've got pots and animals. And a draw pile there, which you can see the top of, which seems strange. It needs water to grow a level. Okay. It grows in a cross shape. Ah, I see. They're going to grow out. Are they going to grow out in the direction of that? So I can't put them on these stone paths. I can put them anywhere else. And I'm trying to take over the red area. And I've used up all my energy. Press to start the watering phase. Ah, okay, so the animals are protection cards. The ladybird here represents your protection. And that's what it's doing. Right, so it is like directly attacking us. This is kind of fascinating. It's kind of like we talk sometimes about the weirdness budget of a game. It's like how much of your game can you make strange and unfamiliar and still get away with it, right? And where do you put the weirdness budget? Is it in the place where it's worth it? Are people still going to be able to go, oh, this game is like that, I know how to play it? And looking at this initially, it's really weird, right? You're doing a deck builder on a space. There's no direct conflict, but there's actually loads of stuff here that is directly analogous to Slay the Spire. So we have an enemy, the anomaly. It's called an incinerator here, which is kind of weird because it doesn't directly relate to it being a hand. I'm not sure why it's an incinerator. But then we really do just have a health and a shield, like you would have in most deck builders. And at the moment, it's raising its strength, so it'll be able to do more damage next turn. So I don't need to defend against it right now. And I can just plant plants. But on turns where it has a red symbol and it attacks, it takes my leaves away, which are basically like my health. And if I don't defend on those turns by using the ladybugs or using any of the animals, then I lose leaves and I can lose the game, right? This is really, really close to what a trad deck builder does. And then the way it's using the spatial part is like an area control game where you're taking over a map, like in something like Risk or one of those types of things. And it's using the grid to do directionality of the different thing, the kind of control points that you put onto the map. So instead of attacking the enemy directly, you're trying to take over this space that's marked by the red. And I've nearly got it because this is going to spread over onto that path and then we'll take over the area. But the thing that's interesting to me here is just how much of this is exactly what you would see in other deck builders. And I think when I think of deck builders that have tried to do this kind of grid-based thing with cards, they tend to focus on characters moving around and attacking with the cards, which is what, if you've played Death Howl is fantastic. I really like it, and I want to play it again soon. But it gets a little bit fiddly to have the cards triggering directional movement on a grid. Whereas here we've got a grid and a sense of place, which is a really nice sort of board gamey thing to have. But the cards are just sort of putting a thing down on the grid that then affects the grid on its own for turns to come, which feels a lot less fiddly than having dudes on a grid and being like, I play my move card to move this guy. It's interesting. I'm going to put another plant there. I'm not going to I'm going to put one there. And that should do us. So you can see this brown area is where the grass is going to grow when it gets watered next time. So if I highlight that, over in the top right, it says watering path. If there's a pot nearby, which are these plants I've planted, the creature will stop to provide 10 water. So that's the watering creature. Hello, watering creature. I like that it's just called the watering creature as well. Like, don't make me learn extra jargon. If your thing is just a watering creature, call it that. Yeah, and then we get our little kind of tiny glade moment of it's all grown back. So I can have a seagull. This would be staying true to my roots, because these are the apex predators where I live. We've got an artifact. Change the cost of a random card in your hand to 0 this turn. And we've got a flower that puts 2 pandas in the draw pile. It grows in a circular shape. It needs more water. And it shuffles the deck. But the panda has no effect, so the panda is actually a useless card. Which I think is a bit of a diss to pandas. I'm going to go with the seagull. I wanted to have pandas, and then I looked at the panda does nothing. So now we can go to the Waterlog Valley, or the Watcher. We're going to go to the seagulls want to go to the Waterlog Valley. They told me. I said, Master, we like water and valleys. Arrgh. She cries. Her tears cover everything. Pots near the path distribute water through vegetation. Right. What's this? Silence. Watcher. So they've both got their own area. Gosh, this is really very much my bag. Like, you know what I love? I love a thinky game with an interesting art style that doesn't get in the way of the gameplay too much. And an interesting theme that isn't being thrown at me via story and is just the game, you know? Right, so we can't actually put pots on the path. That's basically the only place we can't build. But if we want to take over the path, we have to put stuff that's going to reach out and go over the path itself. Apple tree grows in a circular shape. Grows in a cross shape. Okay. So the apple tree we can put there and it will grow out in all directions. Oh, I see. The path, the water creature has to go on the path. Okay. And not all the animals give you defense. That's only what the ladybirds do. So I guess there's a whole thing of like bugs. Bugs being the thing that help plants. Whereas the bigger animals do other stuff. The moo cow grows a vegetation in one tile. So I can use that to sort of fill out the awkward spaces. You often, when in like fill the grid type games, you often need some sort of piece that lets you get those awkward bits. I turned my face off. I hid it for a little bit. Because I wanted you to look at the beautiful game. Going to take me a little while to get the hang of this, but I really, really like what I see so far. Gain some defense. Okay, so we're gonna defend enough this time because he's doing 4, and we've got 5 now. Ketor in the chat said this game is doing world building with assets I was kind of missing in the Greenening. Yeah, it's tonally quite different, isn't it? Like, the Greenening, because of the mascot character, it felt very... The mascot character in the other game felt very sort of Pollyanna-ish, whereas this has a very sort of melancholic feel to it. And melancholy goes very well in thinky games because you don't want the game to be too exciting, and you want the player is sitting there thinking about what they're doing in their next move, and having a sort of tone that is a little bit melancholic and a little bit somber adds to the sense of gravitas of doing the thinking, right? Which is sort of what Blueprints does as well. It's got, you know, Blueprints has this sort of film noir type clarinet music and this very muted palette, and it just fits very well together to have that kind of mood to a puzzle game. A puzzle game usually doesn't need to be like, you're going to die, or do this thing, it feels really cool. It's much more trying to be like, hey man, you're a deep thinker, aren't you? Look at you thinking deeply. So if you can align the emotional sense of there being like gravitas to what's going on in the world of the game and what you're thinking about, that fits very, very nicely with sitting there thinking about what cards to play or trying to puzzle through like a more direct puzzle situation, you know? Choose one card to move to your deck. Just want more seagulls. Two islands left. Well, that's so okay. That feels a little bit arbitrary, but some believe that if the land had separated us by creating walls, perhaps it was for a reason. Others disagreed. You can zoom in, move, and rotate the camera using the mouse. So we've got a pressure. These are all, so they're all hands, the anomalies, and they have different, like, decorations on them to tell you how they're going to behave. This one is going to keep getting stronger. I can't do anything about that. What's that one? Intent add cards. It's going to put cards in my deck. What a bastard. Who does he think he is? Right, and the area of this one, they seem to have the same area. They don't seem to, they seem to share this area. So, I guess first turn I just try and take as much ground as I can. And maybe use the cow to put vegetation somewhere awkward. Koala. The apple tree sort of grows in a big circle rather than a square. So someone in the chat said the grimdark story stuff feels a bit detached from the gameplay. So I don't feel that so much, but I do think there are too many words. So what I want to do at the end of this stream is go back through the intro and tell you how I would edit it. Because I've done copy editing for that kind of stuff before, and often it's just that what you're saying is good, and you need to say it with fewer words. So we'll have a look at that at the end, because I think the mood setting of the you know, the idea that we're rewilding a post-apocalyptic world and we've lost all this stuff. I quite like it because it's making the ecological theme sort of matter from a human perspective, whereas the last game was like post-human. And I think that's neat, but it feels a little bit, I would say, overwrought just because the sentences have too much going on in them. And I'll show you what I mean at the end, because, you know, I am infamous on this channel for telling people that they need to care about the art of their game and they need to care about every part of their game, and that game dev isn't just an extension of computer science or, you know, software development. Lots of people don't like hearing that because they go, well, I can't do art and it's taken me so long to learn programming. But you guess what? If you put writing in your game, that matters too. You know, the good thing is that games can contain any proportion of anything. So if you're not good at art, you can make a very abstract game that doesn't have much art in it, and then your art will be good. But people sort of aspire to make games that are well outside of their wheelhouse in terms of the set of skills. And I would say, you know, I don't think the writing in this is bad, but I think it is the weakest part of the game at the moment. And I think we can just do a little kind of mini workshop on that at the end, and I'll sort of tell you how I would adapt some of the text that we see in the story here and make it a little bit punchier, because it's just, it feels a bit overwrought. It feels like there's too many sentences or too many words to say something. It feels a little bit Edgar Allan Poe. Hey Argent, watching on the big screen, what a luxury. Ah, we lost. You might want to try again and look for a better combination of cards. We are a team of only 3 people, so reading your opinion would really help us to move the game in the right direction. Thanks for playing. Great start screen. The UI does feel like it could be a little bit more consistent, and I'm really nitpicking this one, and I'm trying to kind of draw in some of the comments from the chat as well. And I'm not nitpicking this because I don't like it. And I think one of the things you should understand when you're receiving feedback from your game is if the feedback seems really small and nitpicky, that is generally a very good sign, right? Just like any piece of art. If you write a song and someone's like, oh, I don't like that bit 2 minutes in where it goes, it's like, well, that's very easy to improve because it's such a small part. So if we're saying, oh, the issues with this game is that little bit of typography or that little bit of UI or that one game mechanic, that's a good sign that your game is heading in the right direction, because people don't have broader issues with it. And the problem is, when your game does have broader or deeper issues, it's a lot harder to get feedback that is actionable, because people would just be like, I don't know, it's boring, it's confusing, and then you have to sort of record the issues more as issues. Like someone said, the playtester seems confused by this mechanic or this system, and then it's like, okay, well, what do we do about that? And then you have to go back to the drawing board with that element. Whereas when someone's just saying, oh, that color, that should be a different color, or so, you know, like minute things. So let's jump into that intro text now, actually, before, because it's going to come up for the new game, right? No, okay. I need to shut the app down, I think, to get the intro text up. So let's just do some live copy editing. What more exciting thing could you be doing with your Thursday? So Canel in the chat said that the black colorless photography doesn't feel like. So I feel like this does fit with the game, but I kind of get where you're coming from. There's also a lot of mix of different fonts, which I understand that they're trying to do this like boho thing of like retro typography where you have posters with lots of different fonts on, but I'm not sure if this one fits. Almost nothing remains of what the world once was. That's fine. That scan's okay. This was the first sentence where, when I was reading it before, it started to feel overwrought. There's just too many things in the sentence. It's like a recipe with too many ingredients in. Just a wasteland overrun by anomalies that twist and break all the laws of nature. I would remove the overrun element. Just a wasteland where anomalies twist and break all the laws of nature. There are less components to the sentence then, and it says exactly the same thing. Right? Overrun isn't doing much work here. We might as well remove it. Instead of just a wasteland overrun by anomalies that twist and break all the laws of nature. I never know whether to say that or which. But if we just said a wasteland where anomalies twist and break the laws of nature. Fewer words, exactly the same thing, seems smoother, comes across as more professional, comes across less like someone who is doing Edgar Allan Poe word salad, which is where things start to feel overwrought. And the only time you can really get away with that level of overwroughtness is when you're deliberately playing it up and being camp, which is what Darkest Dungeon does, right? They deliberately going down that H.P. Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe writing style thing. Whereas I think, based on the creative direction of this game, they probably want something a little bit more poetic and subtle. And the thing about poetry is it's about economy of words. It's not about showing that you know these 5 cool words. Sometimes it can be about that, but often it's about using simple words arranged in a way that is impactful, rather than being like, hey, do you know what an anomaly is? Did you know they're overrunning places? Just fewer words, you know. It is probably too late for us, too late to do what we failed to do in the past. This feels a little bit clunky again. I don't know how I would reword this. It is probably too late for us to do what we failed to do in the past. I'm not even sure if the set of words here is right. But again, you can probably... What I would do is just set yourself a tighter brief. And if you said something like, okay, we're going to have these 3 sentences that open the game that set the tone, the more you constrain your brief and set rules, the better the outcome is probably going to be, right? So it's the same with things like color palettes, you know. If you set a more restricted color palette, you'll usually end up with something more coherent. If you set a limit on how much time you spend on something and what it's going to be in terms of like how many elements, it usually ends up more coherent. So I would just set a smaller word limit on this. You know, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. If you set yourself a challenge to say none of these sentences will have more than 10 words, you will be forcing yourself into a corner where you end up writing better, because you're suddenly going for brevity and it stops feeling overwrought. It stops feeling like kind of kid poetry, and it starts feeling a little bit more subtle and nuanced, which seems like that's what the rest of the game is doing very well in terms of the art style. All we have left is the memory of that past, the stories, the songs, the games. That's fine. As long as I do not forget them, perhaps there is still hope. And Kitten in the chat, I really like that suggestion. Yeah, make it a question. Is it too late to do what we failed to do in the past? That's good, because that's bringing us in as an audience and like asking a question that the gameplay is meant to answer, you know? So Faster on Wheels is saying maybe the art, those photographs should be sort of effectively brought up to be this color palette, you know, or the color palette of the main game. Yeah, I think you're right. So what Keita and Faster in the chat are saying is just that darker black in the photography on those cutscenes doesn't match up with this. Even if you used like a post-processing that took all of the black in those photographs and made it sort of this purple, right? This kind of bruise purple color, that would immediately make everything feel a bit more coherent. So I totally get what you're saying. It's kind of like you've got two scenes of the game. You've got the actual game set up here. And I think the map is a little bit inconsistent with this as well. So let's do new game and look at the map. Because suddenly we've got all of this brown. I think this outline text doesn't look good as well. I can see why you've done it, because you're trying to make sure that it reads on that back on that background and that background. So you're trying to make text that shows up on a grey background or a pale background. But I think the outline on these looks bad. And part of the reason it looks bad is because this typography is meant to evoke a hand-quilled piece of text, which is why we associate it with like pirates and anything that's kind of Tudor, early modern period where people are writing with quills. As soon as you put an outline around that, it really draws attention to the fact that this is like an artificial digital thing, and it sort of stops working. So the outlines up here are fine because this is like a typeface that looks more like it's intended to look like something that would be on a little like brass, like a door number, right? Or something that is on it's like a kind of modern serif font. Where as soon as you're putting this outline on these, it breaks the illusion of it being writing on the map. So what I would do in this case is you either need to put like a fade behind the thing. So instead of relying on the outline directly around the text to make the text legible, you put like a strip of translucent papery type material behind the whole word, or like a sub scroll or something. But I also think I'm not sure if the switch away from all of the key colors of the game on this screen works, and if we just had a little bit of that bruisey purple creeping in around the edges where this brown is, it would feel like we'd made more of a sort of a coherent join between the two parts. I like this kind of glitchy effect that's in these waters around here, but you've got a really strange mix of sort of old-timey map and digital glitch effects and stuff. That's a lovely transition. And then, yeah, I think here, where we're talking about these pages, or where people in the chat were saying that these don't work for them, I really think it's just the black gets too dark for the rest of the game. Okay, so we're doing the incinerator level again. And I can see the desire for contrast, right? Because when that black clears and we go to the game, it's suddenly really bright and fresh and you want to play the game, and that's good. But I do think maybe we want to use black very, very sparingly in this game in general, because it's the lack of black is what gives it this kind of this sort of dreamy psychedelic quality. And the like, this is not really dystopian per se. It's much more of a like I'm going to just throw some genre names out there. Weird fantasy, so like stuff like Stephen King's Dark Tower and China Mobile type stuff. It feels more in that area. And then the stuff that we saw before, the photography between levels, feels more like it's like a dystopian city camcorder thing. They don't really go together totally. And you know, I don't get these things right either. I have to experiment loads to get creative direction right, but it's just one of those things, you know. I think folks in the chat are right that those sort of high contrast black photographic bits don't totally work with what this is, because this is more like the thing that's really charming about this is you look at it and it looks really quite twee, like it's a board game about growing flowers, and that's quite like softy. But then when you hear the music, it's got this kind of somber quality, and you see this hand that looks quite anguished, and it takes on this darker tone. But that's quite subtle. That's not like grimdark dystopian, you know, cyberpunk type stuff, which is what the camera stuff in the transitional story bits is giving. If I put an apple tree there, it will grow out onto the path. We're just trying to capture the path now. I'll keep defending because it's gonna keep whomping us and taking our leaves away. It's just too many different styles mixed together. It's really neat core mechanics. The cards work for me. They look they're a little bit jank. but they, I mean, I'm so used to playing board games that have way worse graphic design than these cards. And I think if we look at this set of... So Sean in the chat was just saying that the UI up here feels like placeholder. So the UI up here does go with the cards, at least. I think we've just got too many bits of visual language that don't quite line up. You know, like the outlining of the text, the way that we're doing this outline around the cards. Maybe the outline around here is a little bit too thin and fiddly. I don't know. It feels like all of the different choices that are made are okay in isolation, but not okay in terms of the game. So one of the things I would do here, you see this outline around the animal we're going to pick. I'm gonna get a kangaroo. We're gonna do an Aussie run. We're gonna go for kangaroos and koalas. We're gonna do an Aussie run. We'll go across the middle and try and get to the mirror. One of the things I would do with that, when we're highlighting a card, is try and take some of this kind of scratchy pencil effect, right? It's difficult because you're trying to do like a very flat UI design, and I get the sense that that is a good idea because the main game is so sort of scratchy and hand-drawn, and it's got this kind of animated filter effect on it. So you don't want to do too much of that in the interface because it's all going to merge together. But I think there are some moments like this glow around the cards that could be like a shifting, scratchy outline that starts to mirror the art style here. This kind of like Disco Elysium painted on 3D type thing. And I think often where you've got an outline around something like the word water here and these icons in the interface, it's just a little bit too thin and fiddly, and it feels like it doesn't match the rest of the game. Maybe making it a bit chunkier so that it starts to mimic these grey outlines around the in-world stuff. That could be good. I don't know. It's, again, this is all really fiddly small stuff on a game that seems mechanically really interesting. So none of this is like unfixable stuff. It just all comes down to these are all things to think about as you continue to iterate on it, because these are things that you never get right the first time, or probably not even the third time. And I'm, you know, in the process of doing these things for my own game at the moment, and it's as tiresome as you let it be. I quite like doing graphic design stuff in games. Right. Its intent is to construct. What does that mean? We don't know what it means. And it extends its corrupt area 1 for each played card. Oh, I need to just nip this guy in the bud, right? But I can't because I need to kind of take over this side, and I can't reach there because of the water is in the way. So I have to kind of... It's almost like I'm trying to sneak around the back of this lake, this pond. And it's going to attack us, so we need some ladybugs. And, oh, maybe I could just put a cow there, and that will help slow it down. Yeah, I think it needs to decide a little bit on where, like, the time period of the fonts. Because there's a few places where we're going oldie-woldy, like the kind of the map, doing the early modern or sort of 1600s pirate map, hand-quilled. And then we've got other places where we've got, like, stuff that feels a bit more Victorian, and then we've got totally flat serif modern fonts. I think just choose a time period in time. I know that this is a post-apocalyptic game, but in terms of art direction, you know, it's kind of like the classic Fallout is retro-futuristic and it's the 1950s, right? Or the 1950s idea of the future. So just pick a period a bit more. Where have we not captured? It's that bit on the path that we haven't captured. And is the grass dying here? Is that what's happening? Yeah. Okay, so the cow was a bit of a trump card there. Let me just kind of pop something in that gap. This really feels like you'd have to play it a lot more to work out if there are any problems with the core game, but I'm not deep enough in to really comment on that. But it does pull me, right? Which is a thing you're looking for with playtesters, is does this person still want to play it when they finish playing it? Which I feel like, you know, we've got half an hour left on this stream. I feel like I'm going to want to still keep playing and puzzling out this game afterwards, which is good. Yeah, again, here we're going into like... When a pot reaches its maximum level, another random pot... Oh, these are relics, are they? For every 3 animal cards used in one turn, grow vegetation in 5 random tiles. Okay, let's... I can't buy these, I don't think. Oh, that's... They cost 5 of these fruits. I see. This is giving very, like... late 90s puzzle game Myst type vibes. We'll get some leaves. Get some lives. We'll upgrade a card. We're gonna just make a better Daisy, I think. Beware of the reflections around it. I think it's interesting as well that once we know the kind of enemies in this game, we can plan the route based on knowing what they are, right? So these kind of node maps in roguelikes, there's a couple of different approaches. In Hades, you choose the next room based on the reward you're going to get. You don't know what will be in it in terms of enemies and traps. You just go, oh, I want the health, or I want the upgrade, or I want the shop, or whatever the symbols are, I don't remember. You choose the next room based on what you're going to get for completing the next room. Slay the Spire is like the nodes are particular categories of things that you will do. And as you develop mastery of the game, you get a sense of, oh, okay, well, I've got lots of health, so I'm deliberately going to go through more mini-bosses so I can get more relics, right? So in that case, it doesn't really tell you what you're going to get. It tells you what the challenge or decision type will be in that node. And as the game as you develop more meta knowledge of the game and what's in those nodes, then you start to understand it in terms of possible rewards, and then you plan based on how much health you have and what you're trying to collect. Here we actually know what the challenge will be in each one, so we will learn what the mirror is, what the pressure is, what the incinerator is. And we can like path through specifically choosing who we're fighting against. I'm not sure what the meaning then is of that choice. Like, I'd have to play a bit more to find that out. But these sorts of decisions about like what information are we hiding from the player, what information are we giving them when they choose something on a map, they can really change the kind of flow of the game and what there is for the player to learn and why they'd want to think about that decision. Let's find out what the mirror does. Oh no, I think we had this one before, but I didn't really pay attention to what it was doing. That's going to spawn anomalies. Fills the entire island with vegetation when disappearing. Strength when attacking it inflicts 8 base damage. Okay, so this is going to spawn other anomalies. But if we can take over its area here, it's going to just finish the level and take over everything else. So it's similar to when a sort of traditional deck builder, roguelike deck builder, has minions and you kill the main one and the other ones don't matter anymore. So if we just focus up here, we'll be alright. I don't think we really need to bother about the other stuff. And that also becomes more powerful when other anomalies disappear. So I think, yeah, we don't really want to target the things it spawns. We just want to go for the easiest stuff. Not the easiest stuff. We just want to go for the main boss. Gain 3 defense for every time you break a pot. They just break after they've had enough water? I'm not sure about how that mechanic works. I don't think that's a problem though. Sometimes you don't understand how a mechanic works, and it just well feels more like a well I need to play the game more type thing, rather than oh that's not been explained well enough, you know. And again, that's generally a good sign that the game has a interesting set of hooks. They're putting sloths in my deck. What are these? Replicants. Oh, okay. Oh, that's a good spot. Having to consider the walls and how they block the spread of things is really quite interesting here as well. What I don't have is like a keyword pop up to tell me what fragile means. So just classic, you know, everyone's seen this. You play a card game, you hover over a card, there's a little delay, and then after the delay, the keyword on the card comes up and tells me what fragile means. Oh, it's up there. It's top right. Of course, I've already seen that. If it's in your hand at the end of the turn, it breaks. Okay, I don't want these sloths, so I'll let them disappear. Honestly, a lot of the illustrations on the cards, I would just tint them so they have a purple shadow. Right? Tint them so that their colour space feels a little bit more in line with the game. And what that will do is all of the yellow border and the stuff that tells you about the card suit will stay and like pop out and be like distinct. But the actual animals will then look a little bit more like they belong to the world. You know when you do like a Photoshop colour switch and you can just change the colour on just the shadows or the midtones or the... You keep most of the image the same, but like this cow, you pick the shadows, just push them towards purple and it will look like it matches the rest of the game a little bit more. I know you don't want everything to match because you want things to pop, but then the border will pop more and everything else, the background will pop more and the animal will look like it belongs in this world. Let's grow a vegetation in that awkward little square there. Waiting for my cow to come back so that I can finish off these really awkward spots. Got a very cow-dependent deck. I don't like that sloths are basically a negative card. I like sloths. just completely tanking my deck. It's 100% sloth deck now. Why do they get to add 2 each time as well? That's the real killer here, is that these guys, they're not just filling my deck up with sloths, they're putting 2 in every time. Oh. What's going on here? Ah, okay. So we have constructions. They go sort of on a... Okay, so the constructions go on these little building tiles and they become like a power-up for the whole game. They're all, yeah, they're like a Magic the Gathering artifact type thing. I'm not... So someone in the chat said, would it be better with the placement grid drawn on top? I'm not having too much of a problem with that, because so much of it is you can like drag things around and see where they affect. Which I don't mind. It's kind of part of the sort of toy factor of the game, to be able to just pick something up and go, oh, where do I put this? I'll put it over here. That's what happens if I put it over there. Yeah, not sure. We'll do one more quick run. The incinerator, and then we'll go around to the swelling, I guess. We want to go incinerator, swelling, higher ground, first beggar. That seems to all be stuff we haven't seen. The incinerator, sudden heat wave. Yes, okay. Excuse me, I'm gonna cover your corrupted region with vegetation. I hope you don't mind. What a beautiful island. Draw 2 extra cards at the beginning of the next turn. I'll have a temple. That sounds fun. The swelling. It slowly expands, taking more and more of our land with an insatiable hunger. Pots near the path distribute water through. I know that. Right. What does the swelling do? Oh, this is the one that grows when I play a card. I'm not getting the tooltips come up this time. Okay. So we're just trying to corner it in as quickly as possible on this one, I think. We're going to get 2 extra cards on the next turn for building that little house. It's supposed to be a temple. Doesn't look like a temple, I'm afraid. It's growing. Now there is a hi devs. No, there was a tooltip. There totally was a tooltip. I just didn't. I forgot that they were up here. Like I already knew. Oh, that tooltip there. Yeah. So yeah, I was talking about the kind of keyword pop-ups. The keyword pop-ups come up in the top right, which is a little bit confusing because we're so used to them appearing next to the card. But yeah, I played this guy a minute ago, so I sort of know how this one works anyway. But yeah, it's just a bug to watch out for, I guess. So I never know, does the dark green mean they've got that plant stuff is going to disappear soon? I'm not sure. But there we go. Choose one card to move to your deck. Gains moons. I don't know what moons mean in this context. So yeah, we don't have like a kind of keyword or icon explainer here, which makes it hard to make this decision. The magpie draws 2 cards. The animal grows vegetation in 1 tile. Lose a life. This card returns to your hand. That's interesting. Yeah, let's go for the. Who are we going to upgrade? We'll upgrade our cow so that we also draw a card from it. The high-pitched voice of a merchant echoed through your mind. Thank you, traveller. Please take some fruit of your choice. You know how it goes, right? In front of you were 2 bowls full of grapes, each with a different label. I think higher ground was the one I lost at last time, but I'm not sure. Oh no, okay. This is the pressure and the incinerator together. It's alright. We've only got like 15 minutes left, so I'm happy to play without the tooltips for a little while. Upgraded cow. But yeah, if you go back through the VOD later on, chat had quite a lot of input on just certain things like the UI and a bunch of little things. I think the core of this game is really, really cool though, and I think the vibe of it is really cool. So like the game design and the creative direction here, I'm really, really feeling. And then there's just some stuff to do with like visual consistency, I would say. Like it's not so much like a lot of the individual art assets work totally fine, but there's some stuff where it's just trying to be a little bit too varied and it ends up looking messy, you know. And yeah, go back through the VOD later on. I'll put timestamps on it for when the game starts. I don't really want to start using the ball yet, so let's just shield up. Like actually understanding the vegetation spread mechanics is still taking quite a long time. Like I'm doing it very much based on vibes rather than analysis, but I quite like that the game is structured in such a way that you can do that and still kind of get through okay. We need to go over here, really. Apple tree there. Apple bottom jeans. Boots with the fur. The whole club was looking at her. She hit the floor. Next thing you know, Shorty got low, 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 low. Rather low. That area is clear. Okay, cool. It's gonna kill us though. We're gonna die. Okay, all defense this turn. It's the only way we've got to survive in this map. It's gonna keep beating us up. I think we're gonna lose this round. I think. Oh no, okay, because our stuff triggers before they attack. That's great. Phew. We've got a little camera function as well. A free card. Okay, the moon is your, like, energy on a turn. That makes sense. That's why I was confused by that symbol earlier. We're gonna go and do... Oh, do one of the easier ones, I guess. The monolith. Disguised as illness or emaciation, it is the monolith. It feeds on your strength. Turn 1. It's the monolith. Hello, monolith. Just draw a big line of them. What are you gonna do, monolith? It's rude to point. It's rude to point at God. I'm dead. I'm dead. Nature is dead. So yeah, I didn't even really get into this, but the pots that you're growing, they level up. So there's a kind of almost like tower defense thing of how the units on the board level up and then can spread more. It's really cool. The thing that I really like about this is a really broad. It's going to be a cliche, but like simple to learn, hard to master. It's a thing people used to every board game advertisement on TV in the sort of 70s and 80s had that catchphrase. It's simple to learn, difficult to master. But it is a really good thing to reach for, and it's a good thing to test for when you're playtesting and watching people play your games. Because, you know, I don't know how early in the chat, how early in the stream the dev got into the chat there, but the dev joined us there, and like obviously you can go back in the VOD when it's uploaded and watch the whole thing. But there were lots of points in this where I didn't really know what I was doing or the full ramifications of what I was doing, but I was able to do it in a way where I still felt agency about the choices I was taking. So I was putting my things on the board in the place where I thought they would have the best effect, not really understanding every mechanical system that would lead to the effects that I wanted, but having a fair idea of it, and then gradually gaining little bits of extra information about how the spread worked or how the watering pattern worked. And that's a really good place for a game to be in, because it means people can engage with it very quickly. And then if it gets its hooks into them, then a few hours down the road, they will start to care about the deeper mechanics. And I think that's a really good thing to look for. And I know I'm going to be biased here because this is exactly my sort of game generally of what I'm interested in. So I'm going to give positive feedback to something like this. And most of the more critical feedback we had of this was of the presentation and just things not quite feeling like they go together in terms of like, you know, like this video effect is cool. I'm not sure it fits in this twee painterly type pastel colored game. There's just a lot of art direction choices and graphic design choices in this game that could be improved way more. But in terms of the overall mood of it, it's fantastic. And like the way that the sort of somber music, it just feels very ponderous and trippy and dreamy, which is very, very good for a strategy or a puzzle game where the player is thinking and you want the player to think like they're having a sort of deep experience where they're using their brain. But the fact that the game is very, very playable, even when you feel like you only really understand 25% of the rules and you're sort of trying random stuff out and experimenting, I think that's a real credit to the game design here, because letting people learn the game very gradually over a long period of time, that's a good thing to be able to do, and it's a sign of a deep game. But the game has to be comprehensible a little bit off the bat in order to hook people in and get them going with it. And like I said at the start, there's so much stuff here that's just directly analogous to Slay the Spire, like the way that the health and the shielding works. And I really like that it's a deck builder on a grid, but we don't have the fiddliness of like having to use our cards to move around units that we've placed, which I've seen done a couple of times, and it's never kind of fully worked for me yet. So yeah, this is really great. I'm really interested to see where this goes. And yeah, that kind of brings us to the end of the stream for today. Thank you to everyone who has been in the chat and like giving feedback and stuff like that as well. It's been great as always. It felt like these two games got the length of time they needed. We played all the way through both demos. Very polished, both of them. Nice theme to start the new year with, you know. It's the new year and all the humans are dead. Let's plant some flowers. I'm gonna run the Patreon ad at the end of the stream because I've developed the technical ability to do that. But yeah, if you are enjoying what this channel does, please do support us on Patreon. It's really helpful. It's hard to do content that is focused on games no one's ever heard of without some sort of support, because that's just not how algorithms and fandoms work. They just, you know, people that like Spider-Man, they just want Spider-Man every day, and games is just the same. And one thing I am going to be doing, though, I had a little think about this yesterday, is when I first started this channel, we had our Discord for game developers, which is like a gated Discord. It's a bonus for people supporting the channel, and they get to hang out and like help each other, and I try and help them when I'm not busy and stuff like that. And I think it's generally a really good community. And when the channel started, I used to give everyone that submitted a game an invite to that. Now it's got a bit bigger, and I don't want it to grow too fast because it will lose the vibe. But I still want to give developers passes into the Discord occasionally, but I don't want to do it for every single one. So I've decided what I'm going to do is at the end of this month, I'll do a video that just recovers the 5 games that I liked the most out of everything I played that month, and it will be deeply subjective. It will just be the 5 games that I personally thought were really cool and other people should know about, and that I want to see, you know, finished development. And in some cases they might be like ropey little prototypes where I just think the idea is so cool and the developer should have a hand up and stuff. And those 5 games that go in the video, I will give out like a year's worth of Patreon subscriptions to those developers. I think that's the fairest way of doing it, and I've avoided doing it for a while. I did, at the end of December, I did a video that was like my favorite games from December, and I didn't do anything else. It was just like, here's what I liked this month. I think if I do it with some prizes, it feels a bit weird for me, because I know that there will be people that are like, why should anyone think that a year's worth of a Patreon subscription is a prize for anything? But I want a way to, you know, acknowledge the people that are doing the stuff that I personally think is really, really interesting beyond just streaming their games. But I also don't want to fill our Discord community up so quickly that it becomes a noisy hellhole, because that's what every development place online is like. And I sort of deliberately founded this because I wanted to push back against that, and wanted to push back against how much content about game development was always just sort of like inspiration porn for absolute beginners, rather than, you know, actual craftspeople going, right, we've kind of got a good idea here. It's like 70% of the way, it's 60% of the way. What do we need to do to make this really, really good? That's what I'm interested in. You know, as a senior person who's approaching 40 now, has worked in a bunch of studios, and often on games I personally don't like. You know, I love indie games. I love quirky games. I love unusual games with interesting themes. And this channel was my way of trying to transition from working on games I personally was not really interested in and often didn't have that much creative control over, to creating a situation where I can help in, you know, maybe only in a small way, but I can help developers who are making cool stuff to make cool stuff. And that's why this channel isn't me as one developer just working on a game and talking about it. I do a little bit of that, but it is very much about what you guys are doing, because, you know, it's partly for very selfish reasons. I'm a very novelty-driven person, and although I like working on my own projects, I would much rather spend more time thinking and talking about other people's games, because that's more interesting to me than, you know, me putting out a devlog every 2 weeks that's like, we made a menu, wishlist a game, we tweaked gravity, wishlist the game, which a lot of game dev stuff, when it's very centered around the host's practice, can end up being like. And I don't want to do that. I don't find it interesting, and I don't find just talking about like, oh, game dev's so hard, oh, scope management is so hard all the time. I don't find that interesting. I like the fact that what we're doing here is somewhere in between like dev content and traditional games criticism, because it means we actually get to look at games and think about the specifics of like the design and creative direction of what they're doing, which to me is just way more interesting. It's also much closer to what learning a arts subject is like at degree level or grad school level, because it is much more about, you know, looking at masterworks and learning what they've done, and then looking at each other's work and applying some principles to the actual work, rather than just like, here's 10 tips of how to design your tutorial, here's 3 things that you must do on your Steam page. That's baby stuff, you know. That's entry level stuff. And most of you in the chat are game designers or game developers, and the thing that you really need to acknowledge about that is that it's a leadership position. You know, you are taking charge of something, you're being the boss of something, and that means like starting to get a bit deeper into these things and not just expect. Well, content creators are the way they are because of the ecosystem around YouTube, which I rambled for a very long time about yesterday. But yeah, some of you are at a stage where you don't need 5 top tips for something. You need a deeper dive, and that's what we're here to do fundamentally. So thank you all for joining and for listening to my end ramble. I can't believe there are still 59 of you here, and I will see you sometime next week, I think. Thank you all so much.
Did you know that this channel is funded by Patreon? By signing up to my Patreon, you can receive the following benefits. Socialize in the Discord with myself and other people who share a creative ethos. Take part in monthly supporter streams where I playtest your games and tell you why they're rubbish. Get a warm, fuzzy feeling in your soul by financially supporting this channel, ensuring that I don't have to go back to working in a university or creating horrendous Skinner boxes at a free-to-play games company. I've just opened a new tier on the Patreon, and this is for people that don't like this channel and want me to stop doing what I'm doing.
For £10,000 a month, you can get me to stop making content
Indefinitely. The channel will stay up, but if someone pays that
£10,000 a month.
I will not make any more content the whole time their subscription is active. But if you like my content and you would like to support at a lower rate, then those lower tiers are available and they do not cost
£10,000